Hey guys, Wavejump here, and welcome back to our video. Today, you're going to be covering Selectors. Currently, we're at 630 subscribers, and I should mention that Selectors are probably one of the most important things to learn in the game, probably, if you're going to be doing command blocking, because they could be used in almost every command. Of course, thank you for 613 subscribers, that is awesome, and of course, we'll keep growing, which is amazing, and moving on here anyways, we're going to go ahead and cover selectors. So, first off, what are selectors? Well, selectors at their core are fairly simple. And I'm going to be demonstrating all these with the say command. And let me actually think as big as I can make it. So for example, at A, list all players. At P, list the nearest player. At R, list a random player or entity if used with a different selector, and I could maybe cover that later if I remember. At E, list every entity, and S is use and execute, so there's no point in using it in any other command. But anyways, those are selectors, but what I'm really going to be covering in this episode are selector arguments, because selector arguments are what you use in conjunction with selectors. It's kind of part of the selector, and that really help you to get really specific fine-tuned commands. So I'm going to be covering all this. Also, I will have a link in the description to a page with all of the different selectors in the game, which is a nice thing to reference if you ever just want to read it instead of watching a video. But this will be, hopefully helpful, and I'll try and explain everything in a way that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to be using probably at E for all of this. I don't know, but I'll switch in between them. First off, let me demonstrate at E when there are multiple entities in the world. And I'm going to temporarily change it to easy mode. So if I do say at E, notice it lists myself, the 2 zombie pigmen, and the 2 pigs. Because that's how, those are the entities in the world. The first selector I'm going to be covering is the type selector. Now, the type selector is a fairly simple selector, but it is a very useful selector because it lets you go ahead and select only a specific type of entities. Now, of course, you could do at A or at P if you want to just select players. But if I were to do, for example, say at E, type equals pig, it'll only say the pigs. And I notice there are 2 pigs, pig and pig. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to spawn in another pig with a different name. I'm going to put this here because I'm going to need it a couple of times this episode. I'm going to create another pig named Bob. Oops, I named it, I didn't even name it actually. I'm going to name it 1, 2, 3 actually, why not? And you notice when I spawn in, there we go, we have another pig. And when I say all of the pigs, there we go. So there's the type selector, and the type selector, the way that works is you do at E, I should go over the basic syntax of selectors in the first place, because otherwise none of this is going to make any sense. So you do your selector, then you do open square bracket and close square bracket. And within those brackets, you're going to put your selectors. So for example, type equals pig. Or also name equals 1, 2, 3. So only select 1, 2, 3. Now, as to where name would come in handy, you could do, for example, execute at E type equals pig, name equals 1, 2, 3. TP at E C equals 1, which I will cover in a minute. Oops, I forgot these 3 tildes. There we go. And I made it so that 1, 2, 3 will teleport himself upwards because he's named 1, 2, 3. Of course, I could change this to every single entity. I could also, I believe, change at E to at S, and that'll do the same thing. That's one of the new selectors in 1.12. And I could, of course, get rid of type equals pig, and there we go. Now all the pigs kind of jump up when I do that. So there's type, fairly simple. And as you could tell, if I wanted to go ahead and add in multiple, you just do comma, and then there you go. Now, one of the nice things actually in 1.12, by the way, is that you could actually go ahead and use, capitals don't matter as much. So for example, under type, I could do pig with capital P and it'll still work. And that used to not be the case, and people would end up accidentally killing all the entities in the world or just screwing everything up. So that makes it a lot easier, but yeah. Okay. So let's see, I think what we'll cover first outside of those are the X, Y, and Z arguments. So, that's what they're technically called. I'm going to grab an armor stand and place it right here. And you notice the coordinates are about, let me clear chat here, 62, 8, negative 292. So I'm going to do slash say at e x equals 62, comma, y equals 8, comma, z equals negative 292, because those are the three sets of coordinates. And you'll notice, first off, that kind of lists all the entities. Now, the reason that this is the case is because you have to specify a radius as well. So I'm going to do r equals 1, and that means anything within that block, or a radius of 1, or actually outside of that block even. If you set it to 0, it won't find anything even if there is something on the block oftentimes. And if you do 0.5, it doesn't do anything. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. We could also do is set it to c equals 1, r equals 1, and then it'll list for sure the closest entity to it, even if I am there. But yeah, it's fairly cool, and of course I could add type equals armor stand. So we covered x, y, and z there. C and R are two more that I went ahead and just covered, but I will go ahead and cover those in detail now and explain what they mean. So first off, R. So R lists a radius. So for example, I could do say at a or at e r equals 5, and it'll list everything within a radius of 5 around me. Since I'm next to these, it'll list them. If I walk next to this armor stand, because I'm within 5 block radius of it, it'll list the armor stand. If I walk over here, then I could get all of those. Fairly simple and fairly easy. Rm is a max radius, so it's kind of like the inverse of radius. So I could do, say, at a rm equals 3, or sorry, not at a rm equals 3, at e rm equals 3. And you'll notice, actually let me find 1, 2, 3, the pig here. If I stand right here, you'll notice it does not list that pig specifically, because I was so near to it. So essentially it means if you're not in a radius of 3, it'll list it. Fairly simple. And yeah, okay. The other one we were covering was C. Now C stands for count, and it's a fairly simple one, but it's actually very, very useful when you want to select a very specific entity. So if I were to go say at a c, say at a c equals 1, or at e I should do, you know, it'll list myself. So the way C works is it'll select the closest entities to you, or the closest players if you're doing it with at A. So for example, I am the closest entity to myself. So as soon as I change it to 2, because the zombie pigman is the second closest entity for me, that gets listed. If I stand next to this pig right here, the pig will be listed. I could do C equals 3, and you know, myself and 2 pigs are listed. I could actually also do then negative 3. What it'll do is it'll take the 3 farthest entities. So 1, 2, 3 is only picking an armor stand, whatever. And fun little fact here is that if 2, say, armor stands are in the exact same block, the exact same location, then using the C command will list the one that has the armor stand that has been existent for the longest. Kind of interesting, fun little fact there. But let me figure out here what I want to cover next. Let's see. I think what we'll go ahead and move on to are, really quick, I'm going to cover DX, DY, and DZ. Now, DX, DY, and DZ are very confusing. Actually, I just kind of for fun for now, I want to head back here. I actually had a little wall of selectors originally with an explanation of what everything does. But let me see here. I want to see if I have it covered. Just, yeah, so I didn't originally cover DXDY and DZ, but DXDY and DZ are cover volume. Now, this is kind of confusing, but I'll go ahead and explain it. So here's the way that it works. Let me actually just demonstrate it to you. So if I were to summon a pig, or a couple of pigs all around me like that, I were to go, say, at E, dx equals 1, dy equals 1, dz equals 1, then it will list everything within a kind of almost a radius of 1 of me. If I set this to 2 and that to 3, you'll notice it'll list more 1, 2, 3s. So the way that works is it essentially lets you create your own custom radius. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, you know, if we imagine like a little box here, let me go ahead and grab some stone here. So let's say this is positive x, this is positive z, okay? So I'm taking dx is 2. So I'm taking 2 blocks in this direction, and it might actually be like that, but I don't know. And we're also taking 3 blocks in that direction. And then y is set to 1, so we're only keeping it 1 block high. So it's going to say, hey, anything in this L-shaped area, and whoa, that's funny. Anything in this area will then be selected. Kind of weird, but essentially it lets you create your own. Actually, I should say here, what I could also do here is, say for example, I change dx to 3. Actually, yeah, sorry, it wasn't an L-shaped area. It was like this is what it was. Or if I were to increase like that, it'll kind of keep it in a kind of boxed in area. And I kind of want to punch this guy in here. That's not supposed to happen. Let me kill e name equals 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to kill id type equals item. There we go. Now those are all gone. And I could head back to the normal area. Okay, so there's the X, Y, and DZ, fairly simple. And next we have these scoreboard ones. So scoreboard, as you know, kind of lets you score scoreboard objectives. So I'm going to be demonstrating how you incorporate scores, tags, and teams into it. So first I'm going to go scoreboard objective, set display sidebar. Let's do death count, because death count is an easy objective to use. And I think I'm on the Wavejump YT account, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm Wavejump YT. Okay, for example, so what you could do is you could go ahead and use these score objectives to, for example, only select players with a certain score. So I could do, say, at a score underscore death count equals 1. And notice it found nothing. So the way just score underscore something equals is it gives it kind of a maximum. So if I go ahead and set it to 5 here, there we go. If I set it to 6, it'll also list it. Now there's also min. And what min will do is it'll list anything, it'll list a minimum. So a minimum of 3 will work, for example. But what if I wanted to say only if it's exactly 5? Well, then I do score underscore that underscore min equals 5 and score underscore death count equals 5. And now only if it is exactly 5 will it list it. That's the score one. It's fairly simple, but it's kind of sometimes difficult to remember what each one means because it's not score max, it's score just by itself. But it's a good way to select players only if they have a certain scoreboard score, and probably one of the most useful selectors in the game. Also, I'm going to summon one more of these and a couple more of these. Okay. I don't know if I'll use them, though. Okay, next is tag. And tag is actually fairly simple. So I'm going to do scoreboard players tag, Wavejump YT, add 1, 2, 3. Why not? And now I'm going to do, say at a tag equals 1, 2, 3. And so only list people with the tag 1, 2, 3. If I set 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't have the tag 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I could also set it to anybody who doesn't have that tag. So I do have that tag, so it didn't list me. But if I set it to anybody who doesn't have 1, 2, 3, 4, it'll list me because I don't have 1, 2, 3, 4 as a tag. Just tag equals will list anybody who doesn't have a scoreboard tag. And this can be fairly useful because you could then automatically add tags if anybody has none. And if you do tag equals exclamation mark, it'll list anybody who does have a scoreboard tag. It kind of seems almost like flipped to the way it should be for me, but I could be just thinking about it wrong. Next is team. Now I'm going to go scoreboard teams list, and I'm currently on example team. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, say, at a team equals example team. And it went ahead and listed me because I am on the example team. Now, of course, I could do team equals not example team, and I am on example team, so that's not going to list me. And there are no other players in game, so it's not very helpful. If I do team equals, it'll select any person who is not on a team. And so what you could, for example, do is you could do scoreboard, or in a repeating command block, scoreboard teams join at a, team equals. So anybody who's not on a team will automatically say join example team, right? So that would be fairly simple, and it's an easy way to go ahead and automatically assign teams. You could also do scoreboard or / say @a team equals exclamation mark, and this will select anybody who is on a team, very similarly to tag. Okay, we covered count. Next is experience levels, and experience levels is fairly useful. So although I don't know, right now any very good uses for it, you could go ahead and list players with maximum and minimum levels. You have to do maximum and minimum because reasons. But for example, I could do L equals 22, and it'll list me. If I do L equals 23, it'll also list me because that was the minimum. If I do LM equals 22, it'll work, but LM equals 23 does not work because that's the maximum. So of course I wanted to only list anybody who is at 22 levels. LM equals 22, L equals 22, and there we go. Now if I do XP 2 levels Wavejump by T and try this again, it's not going to find anything. Fairly simple, but it works. Next is selecting by game mode. Game mode obviously is a fairly useful thing, but if you want to, for example, only select players in survival mode, what you would do is you do say @a m equals and then a game mode. So there are different ways to do it. First off, for some reason, if you do -1, it'll it'll just, I don't know. According to the Minecraft wiki, it works for all game modes, but that's not a thing apparently. Okay, so there are a couple of different ways to go ahead and say everything here. So for example, survival mode, you could do m equals 0 because game mode 0, m equals s because you could do /game mode s, or survival. I'm wondering if you could do serve as well. Nope. So m equals s, m equals 0, or m equals, survival. You could also do, of course, m equals c, or you could do m equals, say, exclamation mark s, which means anybody who's not in survival mode will be listed. Of course, that means the second I switch to survival mode and run that again, it's not going to find anything because I am in survival mode, and there are no other players online right now. One thing I should mention, for a lot of these selectors, you could go ahead and take the opposite of it. For example, if I wanted to kill everything that isn't a player, type equals not player, and not is signified by that exclamation mark, so it just killed everything that isn't a player, just like that. Or for example, I could do, say @a name is not equal to 123, and oops, sorry, that's the opposite side. There we go. And because I'm not named 123, it lists me. Okay, you could also go ahead and list by vertical and horizontal rotation, which has to do, I believe, where you're facing. I'm not going to cover that, but if you want, go ahead and click the link in the description below to go ahead and learn how to do that. It'll take way too long. And this video is getting long already. And that, I believe, is, double checking here, all of the selectors. So, oops. I hope you all have enjoyed this video. If you have, go ahead and leave a like down below. Thank you to Shatter. I forgot to mention this earlier, but thank you to Shatter on Patreon for supporting me. Shatter helps to fund my server and also my channel. And if you would like to consider helping me do what I am doing, click the link in the description below, and it'll probably also be in the end card. So, once again, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for watching. Bye.